State Department says. He went ahead and unilaterally did this without the Congress, and I believe that the Congress sets immigration and refugee programs, not the president.
I mean, at some point, I can understand why he did that. Congress has not backed this man up for nothing.
Oh, sure they have.
The Joint Chiefs of Staff, no, they haven't. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, never in my life have I ever seen a president get disrespected like that. They turned their back on the commander-in-chief.
You have
that
obviously
was treason right there. That was treason right there. And yet, them dudes, nothing happened to them. It was allowed because it was a black president. Had that been any other white president, and any Joint Chiefs of Staff would have turned their back, they supposed to get hung.
What Joint Chiefs of Staff turned their back on President Obama?
Come on, man. You don't tell me his first, what's the State of the Union? The first State of the Union. Look at it.
You mean they were turning their backs? You may be mistaken that for Bill de Blasio when the police department turned their backs on him, and with good reason.
Treason.
Well, let's not look. If there was some treason involved with the Obama administration, it was President Obama himself that was engaging in it. So I don't want to hear about treason.
Stop. What are you talking about? These dudes turned their back on the commander-in-chief.
And Obama turned his back on the great state of Israel by allowing the United Nations to vote on the illegality of the vote.
That is not his responsibility. I'm talking about
of the settlements
here in this country. The disrespect of the president of the United States was so rampant during the black president's reign. Simple as that.
Well, it was a reign. You're right about that. It was like a bad nightmare. 8 years of listening to him drone on about sort of these intellectual arguments.
This man, I know, you know what? And listening to you, if you was the only white person I knew, I would actually say, hey, you might have a point. But I know other white people who love this man for whatever reason. So
because they're brainwashed liberals, they believe anything you tell them.
It's not even a white or black thing. It's a personal choice thing.
I was about to say, okay,
it is a black or white thing.
Now let me check.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not a black or white thing at all.
Your average liberal, Murdoch. 1 second. Listen to me, Jackson. Your average liberal views things through the lens of race, gender, and sexual identity every single time, and that's what Barack Obama was all about throughout his presidency. He went against the police department without even taking their side or trying to hear both sides of the story, and that's just one example of his own bias.
Killing black kids by the multitudes. Who want to hear anything at that point?
Well, we have to teach our children well.
Man.
Okay, let me check in with one thing here before we go any further, before you two kill each other. Okay, one mistake that we make, is by saying that Barack Obama was the first black president. Barack Obama is not completely black. Remember, he does have a white half.
That's the half he conveniently forgets about.
He kind of reminds me, remember on Star Trek how Mr. Spock was half Vulcan and half human and never acknowledged his human half? That's kind of like what Obama does, because remember, he said he identifies more with being black. When he looks when he looks in the mirror, he sees a black man, so he identifies himself as being black.
He knows who butters his bread.
But technically, he is not all the way black. Neither is he all the way white.
He's not authentic, biracial. Jackson. He's biracial. He's not 100% authentic, and I don't want to hear about the one-drop rule. I think that if he's black and white,
more than one drop.
He's an Oreo.
What is the one-drop rule, Mr.
The one-drop rule means that if you have one drop black blood, you're black. That's what I was told.
He's reverting back to slavery days.
No, I'm talking about I think I heard this from Kason Jackson himself. Am I right, Mr. Jackson?
That's right.
Okay, could you please explain to our audience what it means in about a minute, the one-drop rule? Because you're gloating over the fact that Europe is not going to be white in another 100 years. So please tell our audience.
America's not going to be white in another 100 years.
Tell our audience what the one-drop rule is, please, and make it brief.
You guys got about 30 years left.
You guys, thank you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, you see, I got 2 against me. It's 2-on-1 now.
Actually, hey, don't holler too loud, Mr. Jackson, because we ain't gonna be number one. The Latinos are.
No, the Chinese are.
There's gonna be one. Look, everybody's
we're gonna
doing
be
everybody, yo.
We're gonna be Estados Unidos of America.
No talking over each other.
Okay, listen. The generation we have today, they pop a few pills and they all go in. The babies are going to be so beautiful and so amazing. It's not going to be funny.
Beautiful brown babies.
Now you were telling.
The only thing that will be missing There'll be no more white people, man.
No, it's not.
we'll be
it's
around.
not going to be no more white people, but y'all gonna drop down from number 1 to about number 3.
Jackson, I want you to explain the one-drop rule in about 30 seconds, please, and how you're gloating about Europe becoming less and less European because of the mass migration. Go.
Can I tell you?
Well, hurry up. We don't got all day.
Listen.
And we do have other callers. So.
Listen, come on, y'all cutting me off. White mother, black father, black baby.
Got that?
Black mother, white father, black baby.
Got that?
Yo, that's what it is.
It does seem to happen that way.
Okay, listen, it's pure science. You take a glass of clear water and you put a drop in it. It's no longer clear water. Okay?
It's polluted.
Exactly. So say what you want to say. In about 30, 40 more years, Mandrake's grandkids are going to be looking like you, Murdoch.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't have any children
now,
there,
every
unfortunately.
now and then
we never know what tomorrow brings, brother. I'm not going to count you out.
Every now and then we do get an exception there. I mean, like Mariah Carey, for example. Now, she's biracial, but she looks kind of white.
Yeah, but,
Murdoch, I want to ask you a question. Do you think that this gentleman's gloating over the demise of the European race and white, demographics in America, for example, is something that is akin to cultural and ethnic genocide? Because that's what it sounds like. I mean, in the old days, we had nation states and people were separated by borders. One moment. I'm not talking about the American Indians because they live on reservations and they're still with their own kind, most likely. As far as I know, they kind of marry with each other.
There was a time they lived on the whole land and with their own kind. Now they're
let's stay focused on this discussion.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Mr. Jackson, because just this morning I was rummaging on Facebook and somebody put up a old ancient map of the United States showing how much territory was occupied by Native Americans, and the headline was, "Why is the history books not teaching this?" I mean, the whole continental United States had some faction of Indian tribes somewhere.
Yeah, there were the northeastern Indians.
Like 3 or 4 reservations.
Yeah.
No, there's quite a number of reservations, but yeah, there was the indigenous people here, but they weren't that numerous. I don't think they were in their tens of millions. But there certainly were quite a number of them, and I don't want to discuss it. I don't know much about the history exactly of what the migration of the Indian people were.
If anybody in
or the Native Americans,
if anybody in this country should be, pardon my French, bitching, it should be the Native Americans.
Yes, and
they got more of a complaint than anybody.
Right, and so how do you respond to that?
Okay, can I ask y'all a question? And I went to school also. I just never got this answer. How do we coined the phrase Native Americans?
Well, native means from a certain geographic region. So the American part came because the Americas, this North and South America, which was coined by the explorers who came here to colonize.
And
Native Americans.
Hold it. And also it was to kind of erase the way that they had been mistakenly categorized for so long as being Indian. Remember when we used to call them Indians? That implied,
or Redskins.
That implied somebody. That implied somebody from India. How can you be an Indian when you're not from India? These are people who were indigenous to the United for what is now the American continent.
Can I tell you how that happened? Because when Columbus and his crew and all of them, when they set sail, they was going to India so they could trade. They wanted to go there.
Yeah, and they thought they had landed on India.
Right, and the people's...
Exactly. So that's where that comes from.
So when they landed, so when Columbus came to America, he saw the Native Americans, he assumed that he was in India, and he was well off course, obviously.
Right.
There you go with the Italian navigators.
So to make up for all that, they did away with the term, even though some people still call them Indians. But they did away with that, and until we figure out something else, what really is the proper name to call them, somebody just came up with Native Americans. So that's to answer your question. That's how that happened.
How about the original people on the land? You know what I'm saying? The original people that was on the land. Find out. No one took time to find out exactly who they were. They was ready to get rid of them, and they did so.
Yep.
So they could have this land.
Okay.
And do what they want to do.
Okay, so you're saying that the white race, in all of its variety, whether it's
history said.
Well, let me finish my comment, and then you can lie about it. The white race, in all of its geographic location, European, America, and so forth, is going into a cultural, the demographic dive that we know.
Cultural shift.
Yes, in
Karma.
America.
Karma.
And
I
you're
call it
happy
karma.
about it. You're happy about it. So I suppose maybe perhaps someday in the future, according to Kason Jackson, white people will be on reservations along with Indians, and we can finish the fight once and for all.
Fortunately, the people that have been oppressed, they're not heartless like that. These people come from nurturing, loving backgrounds who's been oppressed.
Which people?
So, yeah, they don't harbor hate like that. You know what I'm saying? That's why they can't be called racist. They don't harbor hate like that.
Oh, no, I disagree with your logic.
Okay.
Anyone could be a racist or a hateful person. And besides, I
No,
think the
that's
word
not my
racism
logic.
is
That's not
thrown
what I'm
around too
saying.
freely. The word racism is thrown around too freely. Would you not agree, Mr. Murdoch?
Now I will say that, yeah. I mean, just the other day on my other job, the one that I actually get paid.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna rub that in.
We're gonna get that check out soon.
I actually stopped on my break at a Wendy's restaurant, right? And there was a black gentleman who, well, quite frankly, he was homeless, but he hangs out in there a lot, and he was waiting to use the bathroom, and there was a gentleman that was in the bathroom a little long, and so long story short, when the gentleman came out, he was an Hispanic gentleman, and they got into a little to-do because the guy was in there too long, and next thing you know, the Spanish guy called the black guy racist. And I'm like, what? So I agree with what Mr. Mandrake here just said. That word does get tossed around a bit too carelessly nowadays.
Here you had two people of ethnicity calling each other racist, not knowing truly what the word means.
Exactly. That's it. We throw that word now around like chiclets out of a Pez dispenser. It's to the point where it doesn't even mean anything
Jackson,
anymore.
I think that the unfair charges of racism which have been thrown at President-elect Trump certainly are unwarranted and unfair. And look, you're a man who's probably in your life experienced some discrimination in one form of another, mostly because you look like you're a little dangerous and you carry yourself a little bit from the urban environment. But I'm sure you've undergone some discrimination in your life. But as a person who may or may not have been discriminated against and who may or may not have been accused of racism by other people, or perhaps you feel racist sometimes yourself, not genuinely so, maybe in a moment of anger. How do you feel about somebody being accused of something that they really aren't guilty of? Isn't that just plain unfair in regard to Donald Trump? He's never been known as a racist, never been called anything but a gentleman and a person who has a great heart and has done so many good things for the country in his development of projects and homes and buildings all around the world and in the United States. What do you think about that?
And was once given an NAACP Image Award for his work helping, in minority communities, particularly with the youth, and had a picture that had been taken with Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali.
Sure, and Muhammad Ali. Now, what's right is
and
right,
look happy to be there.
Mr. Kason Jackson, what's right is right. I know that you have your good side and your bad side. Try to gravitate towards your good side now. What do you think about that? If someone accused you of something and you know in your heart it's not true, and yet you can't defend yourself because people are around you with a megaphone pointing their fingers at you saying, you're no good, you did this, you're a racist, how would you really feel? And isn't it unfair that the mainstream media, which is primarily occupied by white liberals, are doing this to a president who hasn't even stepped into office yet?
Wow. So let me get this straight.
Please do.
What you're telling me, or what you're suggesting that I say, is that Donald Trump is, his ish don't stink.
I expected to get a more intelligent reply from you.
This guy who you're talking about, Mr. Good Guy, remember when Barack got in, he had to be squeaky clean? There's no way in the world that you sat the whole year last year and witnessed a squeaky clean gentleman when it came to Donald Trump. This man has a university that don't exist, but he's received money for it. He's done the veterans real ugly. He did the veterans real ugly.
Wrong.
Never donated. Always went to kind of, gain. He was always for the gain, the profit margin. You know what I'm saying? He's a businessman. Now, his personal views clearly were shown throughout his campaign.
Okay.
They got him talking on a bus subversively about women. You know what I'm saying? Things of that nature, disrespecting the crap out of women.
Now, wait a minute. You had your say. You didn't answer the question. The question is, there are false charges flying around about Donald Trump, the most recent being that the Russians have a dossier on him which is less than flattering, shows some kind of involvement with Russians and other instances that are sort of unsavory, and yet it turned out to not be true. How do you feel about being accused of something, and I'm sure you may have been in your life, as both of us probably have been, right, Murdoch? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about being accused of things you haven't done? In the meantime, he's trying to do good for the country. I don't think there's any dispute about that. Why are you constantly against President Donald Trump, J. Trump, when he hasn't taken office yet?
Because he's not a politician. He's not a president. He has no political experience. This man's about to take this country on a ride we've never seen before if he makes it that long. And I truly think this was basically to get a Republican in there because they stood no chance whatsoever to beat Hillary, who wasn't really the greatest choice ever, if at all.
She was the worst choice.
All right, so basically, now you're speaking my language. Hillary's no good.
No, but I could agree with that. I could agree with that because me personally, I was really supporting Bernie Sanders, who should have been.
I was about to ask you, how much of a chance do you think Bernie would have had?
Especially with Hillary and her machinery behind Trump? Getting him out of the race.
Trump? Man, Bernie had a snowball effect with supporters. They were getting on the Bernie wagon, yo. Bernie was steamrolling, and then he got cut short.
He had no chance of winning.
That shows you how corrupt the Democratic Party is. All right?
Yeah, they did shaft Bernie pretty good to get Hillary there.
They did because the Democrats thinking, okay, well, we got Hillary. We need Hillary. Because Hillary's going to push another agenda. See, Hillary was not going to be good for this country at all.
Okay.
So how do we get Pence, who no one knows, no one's ever heard of, except for whatever.
Well, most people don't know the governor of adjoining states. Do you know who the governor of Milwaukee is?
Who is that? No.
Well, he can't be a governor. It'd have to be the mayor. But the governor of Illinois, the governor of Chicago, of Illinois, the governor of California. Well, that one I know. He's Brown, right? Is that his name?
Okay, well, California? The point making is, after the inauguration next week, do we really think that Trump's going to last a year?
What do you mean by that? It sounds like you're implying that someone may try to harm him.
Do you think he's going to last a year?
What do you mean, an impeachment? Can you be more specific?
That being one. Let's just go with that. Let's go with impeachment. I've never seen a president in my 51 years of living, and actually, I'll say 43 years of knowing what politics is. There's never been a president I've ever seen already being spoke of being impeached. They talked about it with Clinton, but that was into his term. Nixon, after they uncovered Watergate. They're talking about impeaching this guy the day after he got elected.
Well, see a lot of that is your media, because remember now, their focus is now going to be from day one trying to dig up everything they can to see that something like that happens.
Sure.
You know, that's why you're hearing that talk so early, Mr. Jackson.
Well, Mr. Jackson, thank you very much. I think we're going to move it along because we have another political guy calling in, Eric Parker, who may want to say something about Israel and the Middle East and all the problems that Obama, your president, has caused.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in another few days, he's going to be kicked out of office, thank God. And I hope the door don't hit him in the butt because he really deserves that it does hit him in the butt for all the problems he's caused in our country.
Yeah, and just to let you know, Mr. Jackson, since we give you such generous amounts of time on this show, we're thinking We're thinking of changing the name of the show to the Mandrake, Murdoch, and Jackson Show. Just want to let you know
I wouldn't go that far, but I am an affirmative action employer.
Even he's shooting down the idea.
Murdoch, I'm affirmative in the employment opportunities. We don't discriminate here on the show. And I do thank you, Mr. Jackson, for all of your insights, although I really disagree with your dislike of Trump. One last question, and I do have to let you go, and I hope you can answer it concisely. If Trump shows himself to be the successful president that he was in his business world, would you give him a little bit of support, at least start to think maybe this guy isn't as bad as the media brainwashed you to believe he is?
Only because I know that's not the case. No, I wouldn't.
All right. So no matter what he does, you're already poisoned for him for the next 4 to 8 years. Even if he does improve the economy and protect our borders and bring jobs back, none of that will matter to you.
Only because it's going to be President Pence. It's not going to be Vice President Pence. I don't see how you don't see that.
Well, I don't even want to discuss issues that you're intimating here, because President Donald Trump's life is in danger, because there's a lot of people out there, primarily from the media.
His party during his campaign was rapidly jumping ship.
Look, President Obama has a lot of security and protection. The only thing is that a lot of America loves him and has given him more than the benefit of the doubt. Donald Trump has been unfairly maligned, and if anything happens to him, I would blame a big part of it on the media that has so demonized him without any good reason for the last 18 months. And so I do hope that he is safe, his family is safe, and I do know that the Secret Service and everyone else really enjoy his company, because he really supports them and appreciates the good work that they do. So I do hope that you agree with me that we wish him well and safety.
I wonder why he don't put you on his cabinet, man.
I don't want to be on his cabinet. I just want America to be great again. I want the country to recover from Obama's disastrous 8-year tenure. Mr. Jackson, thank you very much.
Full disclosure, when he was volunteering for Trump, they wouldn't let him above the basement.
They wouldn't let him on the block, yo.
In full disclosure, you see, with a co-host like this, yes, I was stuck down in the call center at the base of the escalators there. But there's a reason for that. I was blackballed. So I wasn't able to make it up to the 14th floor, but maybe if President-elect Trump hears this telecast, he'll decide maybe he could make me do some work for him, and bring along Matt Murdock, and then you could stay out of the loop.
He'll make you the ambassador of beer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kason Jackson. We'll talk to you in a couple of days' time, and hopefully by then you'll have a change of heart.
All right.
Are you going to watch the inauguration January 20th? It starts at 11:30 a.m.
Well, probably not. I didn't even watch Obama get inaugurated, because at the end of the day, you know, they're not effectively affecting me.
Got it.
Okay?
I understand. It's a mature approach to take. Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson.
Hey, no problem. Great talking to you fellas.
All right, man.
Hey, one last thing, Mr. Jackson. I was accused on Twitter as being white trash. One of my detractors saw some of our shows and made a comment that I'm white trash and I dress like Donald Trump. What do you think about that?
We're on YouTube now and soon to be on Facebook. Yeah.
Mr. Jackson, what do you think about that?
That goes to show you, Mr. Mandrake, as much as I hate to admit it, that you too are steamrolling. And for someone to call you white trash, they're sorely mistaken. I mean, yes, you dressed in the finest linens on earth. White trash doesn't. Okay?
Exactly.
Every girl crazy about a sharp-dressed man.
You know what I'm saying? White trash normally goes to the Salvation Army band, or may not even go at all, because they rocking the same jeans.
Walmart.
I don't know. I can only speak from what I see. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to you, no, sir, you're far from white trash.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Kason Jackson says it here live on the Lionel Mandrake radio program with Matt Murdock. Lionel Mandrake is not
white trash.
What'd you just call me?
Right. Okay, we got to run, Mr. Jackson.
Jackson, I'll talk to you off the air. Thanks a lot.
Hey.
Okay, we got another caller lined up here, I think.
Yes, we do have another caller calling in. Oh, no, that's Uber. Oh, the Uber ride is outside. Jesus Christ, we're running down on the line.
We're down to Uber now.
I wanted to say I did get the inaugural program here, and it's going to be the official program. I have it. It was sent to me by the Trump people yesterday, and I did print it out.
The same ones that wouldn't let you out of the basement.
They wouldn't let me out of the basement, but check it out.
But he gets an invite to the inauguration.
The honor of your presence is requested at the ceremonies attending the inauguration of the President and Vice President of the United States, January 20th, 2017, at the Capitol. You know, it's really, really nicely produced. It has a nice look to it. It says here that the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies has a chairman named Roy Blunt. Now, there's a funny name. Then there's Mitch McConnell and Charles E. Schumer, Paul D. Ryan, Kevin McCarthy, and Nancy Pelosi, who are on the inaugural committee. Gee, with the cast lineup like that, I hope Trump's inauguration goes smoothly. I mean, there's a strong potential for sabotage.
We will see.
And I wanted to show you, what do you think of this here presidential portrait of Donald Trump?
Is that supposed to be his autograph down there?
That's his signature, yes.
It looks like a seismograph.
You know, you're right about that. It's very sharp and angular. In fact, it shows a certain determination in its effect.
Okay, and I'm noticing something else here. I know you can't really see the picture that he's putting up because the camera's too far away, but that expression on his face, It's like he looks like Bill Belichick, you know, the coach of the Patriots. You know, he always looks like he's constipated. Trump looks the same way in this picture.
Well, you know what it is? I was mentioning this off the air that I really feel now is time we have a president who's very serious, and I'm really tired of these politicians.
That picture is definitely serious.
You know, these politicians here who smile and they look so friendly. In the meantime, that's all they are empty suits.
If you remember the old show from the 80s, Airwolf, remember that? Jan Michael Vincent?
Yes.
Okay, all right. In this picture, Trump looks like Stringfellow Hawk with his finger on the kill button.
Now, compare that photograph to this one of the Vice President Mike Pence.
Mike is the one that's going to calm him down.
But I have to say, if Mr. Trump and his team is listening to me, I, for one, personally think that this is a really dignified presidential portrait because it shows a person who's determined and serious about politics. And I do know he looks very serious, but I like that.
Actually, he looks the way that Alec Baldwin portrays him on Saturday Night Live in that picture.
Well, I don't mean to insult Donald Trump. I really think it's a great photograph of him. That's all I'm trying to say.
We're
because for
just
8 years
funny,
of phony politicians who are smiling at you and constantly trying to appease you and disarm you with their mannerisms. Donald Trump is straightforward and face value.
And that's exactly what the bottom line of his appeal to the American people that saw fit to elect this man. Because they saw, hey, this guy is a straight shooter. Remember, he wasn't a polished politician. I think that's what a lot of people liked about him.
I wanted to mention...
And it wasn't going to be business as usual with this guy.
No, it's not. Murdoch, the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies cordially welcomes you to the 58th presidential inauguration. So there have been 58 previous inaugurations. But I wanted to say is that the theme of the 58th presidential inauguration is uniquely American. In other words, the theme is going to be is uniquely American themes. So it recognizes the symbolic importance of today's event. They're talking about one second here. The scene at the signing of the Constitution of the United States, uniquely American because America is a constitutional republic.
Right.
And so as a constitutionally run republic, we're able to do things that some countries in Europe, for example, can't because of their democratic system, which is more or less not a Republican-type system. And their constitutions, I mean, we have the Magna Carta and the U.S. Constitution. And then from those two perfect documents really came one of the things that makes America so great.
Yeah, and I think what that represents is like we're getting back to the basics. You know, after, you know, what we've had the last 8 years of liberals trying to take this country so far off base of what it's supposed to fundamentally be, we're going to get back to being what this country has been traditionally.
We do have a theme here, the map of the Louisiana Territory, the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. That's one of the themes. You know, that was all part of Manifest Destiny and the westward expansion of America from the eastern seaboard over. And that was in 1805, and that's part of the theme. And then, of course, one of my favorites in this uniquely American theme of the 45th president's inaugural, that's Donald J. Trump, is East shakes hands with West at laying the last rail. It's that famous photograph of Promontory Point in Utah where the Union Pacific Railroad and I guess the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad or the Union Pacific Railroad and the other railroad met at Promontory Point and they drove the Golden Spike, uniting the continent into one nation. And that was photographed here. I don't know if anyone could see it, but it's May 10th in 1869. This was one of the really turning points in America because we were able to, for once, go from one end of the country, from the Atlantic to the Pacific by rail. It was part of the development of our nation. In any event...
And all these images are significant because they represent significant turning points, as Mr. Mandrake said, in our history. And we need to remember our history so that we move forward based on it. You know, remember, like they always say, if you don't remember history, then you're doomed to repeat the mistakes of history.
Right.
So let's just go ahead and remember the things that made this country great and do whatever we can to help make this country great again.
I just want to mention one last thing. We have a minute and 38 seconds on the clock. Stephen McDonald, police officer Stephen McDonald, was shot and paralyzed on July 12th in 1986. I don't know if you remember that.
I wasn't here then. I'm just now finding out about it.
Officer McDonald, I remember that day when it was a terrible instance. He was shot in Central Park by a person, 15-year-old Shavod Jones, whom he was questioning about, of all things, a bicycle theft. He was shot 3 times, once above his eyebrow, once in his throat, which shattered his spine, and it paralyzed him police officer Stephen McDonald. He spent 30 years of his life a quadriplegic in a wheelchair. He passed away yesterday, January 10th. 2017, just the other day, he passed away. And today is his funeral in St. Patrick's Cathedral.
And famously forgave his assailant. Yeah.
That's correct. So I think we ought to take a moment to keep him in our prayers, because for 30 years he was a paraplegic. He honored the badge, and I think he's with God right now. And we should remember, be mindful of the sacrifice.
And he remained with the police department, where he still continued to serve despite his disability.
So God be with him. Godspeed, Officer McDonald. And
respect to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Also, Mr. Meridoc, thank you so much for bringing on Niles French. And
by the way,
God bless America.
I want to let you know the reason why I was wearing the hat today. I was watching the old show the other day, and I noticed that the light puts a glare on my head that makes me look like I got gray hair.
Amen to that.
I do not have gray hair.
In fact, you don't have much of any hair up
I don't
there.
have any hair.
Thank you very much. God bless America. January 20th is only 7 days away. Give Trump a chance.